I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Listeners, welcome to the Physical Performance Show 2017. I trust you had a great and safe Christmas with your loved ones and that you're enjoying the beautiful months of December into January if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, and if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you're rugging up. There's listeners from right across the world now that tune into the Physical Performance Show. So thanks again to everyone that supported the show in 2016, its inaugural year. Through the year, we had some real fun. We got to catch up with some great guests who shared openly and honestly around some insights from their stories of how they got started right through to their best training tips and favorite memories. Also getting to know some of their personalities was certainly for me a whole lot of fun, and I know that was one of the things that listeners of the show have appreciated in 2016. 2017 is going to be a bumper year for the Physical Performance Show. We've got some terrific guests lined up, rearing to go. I can't reveal the guest's identity at this stage. However, I know that if you enjoyed 2016, you're going to love 2017, what we've got in store. I'm on break across January from doing the live interviews. So what we've done is we've prepared some of the best of 2016 for you guys. Up first, we've got the best of the Rio Olympics 2016. We thought it'd be a nice way to put a bit of a bow on the Olympic year that was and pick out some of the favourite moments from the 2016 guests that appeared on the show who went to Rio in 2016. Big thanks to Daryl Misson, the incredible audio engineer who makes this Physical Performance Show possible with his expertise. So big shout out and kudos to you. Thanks, Daz. For those that have been leaving reviews on iTunes, I am so appreciative of that. What your reviews do is it helps iTunes get this program in front of more people's eyes who will enjoy it and into their earbuds, obviously. The program, the Physical Performance Show, has been sitting inside the top 100 in the health and fitness podcast category on iTunes for more or less half of last year. So I want to say thanks to you guys who have left reviews. I am really appreciative. And by the time this goes to another live episode in 2017, there'll be a few others that I'll gladly share. So thank you. If you're yet to review and you've enjoyed the program for 2016, can I please request, jump over iTunes, go to ratings and review, and just leave a quick review, 1 to 5 stars, whatever you wish to rate it. So let's jump straight in with some best of 2016s. Enjoy the program. Dane, Rio, I have watched Olympic Games since I was, I think a 12-year-old, and actually understood it as a 12-year-old. Yeah. So I think it started as Atlanta for me, and then it went on to the years that just followed on.
Yeah.
Seen, as you would have as well, we've seen a myriad of Australians do well on the Olympic stage. Everyone feels that sense of pride. Yeah. We're a small country that punches, in terms of population, that punches some serious weight in terms of results. Your bronze medal in the 20K race walk was one of the, in my mind, just the best reactions and responses I've seen from any athlete. But, obviously we've all got our eyes focused on the Aussies.
Yeah.
It just seems so genuine, spontaneous. And I think anyone watching from the outside looking in just connects with that rawness of emotion because, we do see athletes that cross the line and maybe they've already won a few and it's kind of like either they just expect it or it's just become a little bit, or it's just their natural reaction style, whatever it might be. But when it's someone that shows that degree of emotion and the post, success, medal success, media time that you spent, it was evident that was still flowing through you.
Yeah.
Mate, take us through the race
you.
first of all. Obviously, on behalf of myself and the listeners, congratulations, just outstanding. But take us through the race before we then talk about the emotion at the finish and obviously the things that followed. The race, you're on the start line. It's the Olympic Games, 20K race walk. You've fulfilled part of a dream at that point by throwing on the green and gold at Olympic Games. What's going through your head just as the guy's about to fire the start? I shouldn't say guy, the starter's about to fire the pistol.
Yeah, so stepping up to that line, we've got the 3-minute call to go, and everyone's GPS watch has just been set, really just for take-home sake, not really actually paying much attention to that at all. This is where, everything goes through your mind about what can happen, what could go wrong, blah, blah, blah. And this is the time when you've got to shut it all out. This is the time when it's literally all on the line. It's ready to go. So you've got to focus on what you want to achieve and what you've got to do throughout the race. So for a 20K, there's a lot of tactics. There's a lot of, stuff that we have to think about drinks. We have to think about technique, about who's taking the lead, who's doing the work, who's looking fresh in the race. So there's a lot going into it. But on that start line, it's literally all you hear is just that thumping in the heart, absolutely just pounding, and everyone dead silent for the start as it's on your marks. And it's totally surreal. It's such an unbelievable feeling for an entire crowd just to suddenly hush, and literally all you can hear is the beating of your heart as it goes. And the gun goes and we all take off, and we get into the rhythm, get into the cruise. Usually the first 10K and 20s are not particularly aggressive. However, this championship was pretty big. I mean, we had the Kenyan have a crack, we had a Korean, we had two Japanese guys went to the front. We had Tom Bosworth from the UK even have a crack. So, I mean, I was training with him for a bit, and he surprised us all with a massive aggressive attack.
When you say attack, you mean just going off the front?
Yeah. So he went off and he pulled about 20 seconds by 10K. So I was sitting in our little chase pack with keeping my eyes on the two Chinese. From the get-go, they were the guys I knew I had to chase, and they were the ones that I thought were the ones that were going to be the danger. So I was keeping my eye on them, but we were 24 seconds down at the 10K mark behind Tom, behind a Kenyan and a Korean. So, in some ways it's, we're a long way off the pace, but I had confidence in myself for how I could finish. I knew that I could negative split that second 10K, and I knew that the dangers, the big threats, were those Chinese blokes. So that's where I kept my focus, and that's what I wanted to maintain throughout the race. It was around probably about the 5K mark when things started to heat up a little bit, and we pulled all the lead back in, and it became myself on the front line with Brazil, Germany, Canada, two Chinese, and that became our pack. That was where it was at. That was where the finish was going to happen.
This is 5K to go, sorry?
Yeah, about 5K to go.
Yeah. At this stage, you're how many minutes into the race? Approximately?
At 1 hour.
1 hour mark?
Yeah,
yep.
Just about 1 hour.
So heart rate's screaming, things are, you're already working really hard. So an hour into it, you've got approximately 20 minutes left.
Yeah, so we've been going for 15K, 1 whole hour, and your heart rate sits at about 185 throughout that entire 15K. So it's, you've been plugging away at a really, really solid pace, and the lactic is starting to build and it's starting to burn, and you've got this 5K kick to go. And so we started winding it up, these eight, we're doing about 8:05 every 2 kilometre, four, just on over 4 minute K pace every kilometre, which all of a sudden in the last 5K dropped down to about 3:48. So we knew it was on, and with about 3K to go, I came around the turn and I had to grab a drink from Dad. So I knew I'd come around the turn and I'd get myself a bit of fresh air, get in front of the pack and get my drink that was 100%. You needed to take this with 3K to go. That's going to be the last proper feed you get. and you just push it from there on. Unfortunately, I think in hindsight, I think I may have sparked something, because as I took off to go around that turn, I think the two Chinese blokes looked at me and went, oh crap, he might have it. And I think they may have seen a bigger threat than I was actually throwing down at the time, because as soon as I got my drink and I repositioned myself for the pack to come back, Zen Wang just went.
And you were just positioning yourself for the drink station.
Yeah,
by getting the front seat, don't have to mess around behind.
Yeah, exactly.
And
and I think they saw it as a big threat.
Sparked the Chinese storm.
Yeah, exactly. So it was something that, as soon as they went, I wasn't totally ready for it. I thought it was going to come in like maybe within the last 2 kilometers, not 3K out. But when they went hard. He dropped in one of the fastest laps of the race, and that 3K lap, he did a 3:45.
Wow. And for any runners out there, we resonate. That's a fast K.
Yeah,
split.
he smoked it for that K, and he put a big lead on everyone, and the entire pack just blew apart. So 8 guys all of a sudden walking around a corner turned to 8 guys stretched over 100 meters.
And when you went past the drink station, your father Dave was on the drink station.
Yeah,
that would be the last time you'd see your dad until the end.
Yeah.
Remember what your dad yelled out?
So he's yelling out, keep it cool, wind it up in the next lap. So that was that was where we thought it was going to happen in that next lap. But, championships never really play out as you expect. And this one certainly didn't. Everyone kicked up a little bit early. But from then on, it was just, all out, just hang on and give it everything you've got. So we're coming around with about 1.5 Ks to go, and I was absolutely drilling. My legs were cooked. I could feel the breathing was starting to get to me, and I knew I was putting absolutely everything on the line for this. And I took a look over the shoulder, and the German and the Brazilian bloke were there, and I knew that the Brazilian, obviously from World Juniors, when he kicked over the top, I knew he had some pace on him. So I had to get some distance, and I had to make sure that I kept it. So I just said, settle in, watch the Chinese guy, and reel him in. If I can reel those guys in, the ones behind me, there's no way they're going to catch up. So that was the game plan. But, I needed a bit of help as well. And that's where the support from my cheer squad kind of came in. I had my fiance, I had my brother, I had my mum, I had my 2 best mates, my training partners, Nick and Brandon. I had one of Katie's best friends there as well. And along that race course, there was a couple thousand Brazilians just
hometown Olympics, right?
Absolutely screaming, and it's all you could hear.
Because at that point, you've got the Chinese, two athletes in front, yourself, and then the Brazilian chasing.
Yeah.
With about 2K to go.
About 1,500 to go.
Okay, so 1,500 metres to go. And so at that point, you said you were working hard. Yeah. Evidently, from your recollection, is that the hardest you've ever pushed yourself in an event? I mean, every time you step up for it, you're going to push yourself. But there's levels, and then there's this extra special levels that come from somewhere. Was this obviously one of those extra special levels? Yeah,
this was 120%. It was working beyond my capacity, and I really feel that, as we came through this crowd of deafening roars of all you could hear was just the Brazilian sporters, all of a sudden we came past with about 1,400 metres to go, where my little crew was standing, and I could hear them. And it was just huge, mate. It's such an emotional thing for me. Yeah. I mean, I could literally hear them throughout all the deafening screaming, and that they were willing me on, like my 2 training partners going like, come on Dane, finish it off, finish hard. They knew I had it. And they believed in me, which kind of, it got me over the line to be like, what, I can hang on, I can do this. And I think from there, in my mind, there was no way, not anyone in the world would have caught me and passed me. I was hanging on to that bronze, and there was nothing that anyone could possibly do.
Can you remember what they said, Dave? I mean, there's a lot of noise. There's Brazilians screaming for the Brazilian athlete. Yeah, from my junior triathlon days, it used to always surprise me that you could always pick out, even amongst the crowds, you could pick out the voices of your significant others.
Yeah.
You still hear them. Can you remember any of the words that they were yelling out?
I know Katie yelled out, "Just hang in there, baby," and that was one of the biggest things. And then Nick and Brandon and my brother just like screaming out as well. just, yeah, some of it just completely inaudible, but I knew just from hearing their voices how much support there was. So that was the biggest thing. But yeah,
There's their emotion.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah, and so it's totally unbelievable. So we came round in that last lap, and Dad's
How many Ks were the laps? Sorry, Dad.
1K lap.
Oh, wow. 21K
1K
loops.
laps, yeah.
Wow. So you didn't pick that up? I didn't pick that up on
it
TV.
was really, really quick laps.
Wow. Is that normal for a 20K race?
It's become a little bit more normal.
Okay. Great for spectators.
Yeah, great for spectators, and I enjoy it as well. But 40 turns isn't so fun.
And keep an eye on everyone.
Yeah.
So you're to the line now.
With about 700 to go, I came past Dad on the drinks table, and
so you didn't see him again.
He was just going bananas. He had his two fists up in the air, just cheering, going, trying to will me with everything. And I remember as I kind of went past, he almost had this questioning look, like, can you do it? And I gave him a bit of a nod. I knew that there was nothing that was going to pull me up in that last 700. I gave him a bit of a nod, and there was that that connection and that thank you to him as well that was just unbelievable to share with him. And then the same thing as I came past my cheer squad with about 300, 400 to go. I even threw up a fist and threw up a pump and said, "Come on, get me there." And it's just totally unbelievable and unforgettable experience to just be able to get a rev up like that as I'm coming down to a finish line. I've got 100 meters on the bloke behind me, and that bronze medal was mine already.
Well, mate,
totally surreal.
So was your dad not on that last lap? Because I got it wrong. I thought that a couple of Ks out was the last time you'd saw your dad, but obviously 700 meters out.
Yeah.
Was your dad kind of like, there was no words needed at that point?
There was nothing.
It was just sort of looked at you, you registered, and it was almost as you interpreted, hey, have you got it?
Yeah.
And you looked, and off you went.
Yeah, just a nod in the direction was all he needed, and that's I was already putting in.
So, mate, you crossed that line, and not long after, what was your first thought?
Crossing that line, first thought was just, you've done it. You've just achieved pretty much everything you wanted. Everything that you've seen everybody else achieve throughout the years. There's been so many Australian athletes who've medalled, and that was where I always wanted to be. The medals was the highest we can achieve in our sport, and one of the most amazing achievements that you can do in sport.
Yeah. Did you know going into the race that you were a medal potential medalist? In your heart of hearts? Or was part of your response and reaction that we all so warmed to the fact that you were just a bit like Sally Pierce and McClellan, just overwhelmed with the fact that, oh gosh, can't believe this happened? Or did you know that you were a genuine contender?
I never step onto any line thinking that I can't potentially take the guys on. And I definitely had a lot of confidence from the Race Walking World Cup Rome, which was about 3 months earlier, where I finished fourth. And I finished fourth in pretty terrible physical condition where I had a chest infection again pre-race. So I knew I could do it. I knew the body could do it. I just had to put it all together on the day. And this race played out a lot differently to World Walking Cup, so it was a little bit slower. But it was still a PB for me.
1:19:37.
37, yeah.
And it's interesting to say that. I mean, previous guests that were in Rio with you on the Australian team, for example, Ryan Gregson, spoke about how slow his 1500 metre final was and the dynamic that created for the race. I mean, Ryan described it as an outright dawdle, the final. And so obviously at a World Championship / Olympic Championship, there's Olympic Games, there's another level of...
There's a total mental game that's going on that you never quite grasp it when you're watching it from the telly, and I never realised about it. But as soon as you start racing at the top level, you realise that so much of it really is mental. So there's battles going on all the time. When I'm race walking, I mean, we've got technique to worry about as well. It's something even bigger than just running along in a marathon. You can run with terrible technique or be fatiguing and you're okay, but if you fatigue in a walk, your technique goes out the door, you're disqualified.
As in opening yourself up for flags or cards.
One of the things you have to get over with the mentality is that is your technique safe throughout the race? I mean, it's something I've worked on for years and years and years, and that's been a kind of an ethos that my dad has, is technique. You get that perfect, you can push as hard as you want without feeling like, a bit of judge's pressure happening. So that was something I rely on, as well as the fact that I can walk beside somebody and my technique looking so good will actually put more pressure on them, because all of a sudden judges will start comparing techniques. It's something that isn't directly written into our sport, but it happens. If you put a really smooth and well-oiled technique up next to something that looks a little bit clunky or a little bit awkward, that's where it all of a sudden the judges start taking second looks at them, and as soon as they second look in the race, that's where they start to feel the pressure, and you've got a mental edge already.
Obviously, Elsie, this was a very successful Rio Olympic campaign in the 5,000 and 10,000 metres, and then there was London, which was your debut Olympics off the back of 3 previous campaigns. So when you mention not getting the best out of yourself, I imagine through that journey, Elsie, over the years, there's been times where you feared that you wouldn't get the best out of yourself. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was pretty disappointed with how I performed in London. But like looking back, it almost had to be that way. Like it had just been such a huge build up and journey. It'd been 12 years since I first qualified for the Olympics, and I hadn't yet lined up for it. And so to actually finally be standing on the starting line was such an emotional moment. And I think that emotion kind of got to me, and it's obviously quite draining to be so emotional like that. And I don't think that I quite got the best out of myself in London, but I think that as I said, that kind of had to happen, and I had to go through that process. But Rio, I always said from the very beginning, right from when I got selected, that it would be much more business-like, and it would be like any other race, even though it's not. But it would be, I'd be taking measured risks to make sure that I absolutely got the best out of myself, and I feel like I did that, and that was, it just made the experience so much better, because obviously, you can put your heart and soul into something and still not quite get what you wanted, and especially in this sport, but that's kind of what makes it so beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. But to be actually able to perform and how I wanted to in Rio, probably above and beyond how I expected, was amazing, and so grateful for that.
Well, Elsie, as a fellow runner and someone that's followed your career from a distance for years, I was with a couple of running friends on the Gold Coast. We were texting each other about the finals as they were being broadcast, on the mornings that they were being run here in Australia, and I think everyone in the running community that knows of your challenges over the years was just so pleased for you. And I mean, you said it maybe exceeded expectations. If I'm correct, you ran a 40-second PB in the 10,000 metres. That's a good day, right? Yeah,
it was a good day. I knew that I was fit. I knew, we've never trained so hard in the lead up, the last 2 months, the last month, especially in Laguna, and preparing in the heat and the altitude and the terrain and the hills, and just everything about that camp was hard, but it was awesome because none of us, or all of us, were healthy. We were all in a really good place mentally and emotionally. I just feel like we were ready, and as a team, Melbourne Track Club, and having my family there as well, Indy and Johnny, in the build-up was, a massive blessing. And just having them come on that journey and see and be a part of, the whole experience, the whole build-up and everything was really special. And then, being able to kind of put it all together when it counted was, it was really special.
And Elsie, I really love the post that you put up after the 10,000 metre final of a picture of you running at the stadium there. I think it was at the finish, but the caption was what grabbed my attention. You commented that it was you knew it was going to be a good day. Kathy Freeman had given you a hug on the warm-up track, and what was the story there?
It just, I don't know, it was just something. I was just kind of reflecting on the day. I just think I think I captioned that, normally, like, I'm a really awkward hugger. Like, if I admire someone, I was like, when you go in to kind of hug someone and they're going in for a kiss and you're just going for a hug, or vice versa, and you're willing someone to just take control of the situation. And but it was like a clean hug, it was like a really it was a good embrace. It was crisp. And kind of like a high five, a high five can go horribly wrong. It was good, and I just knew it was going to be a good day. But I said in that caption as well, like, I woke up feeling just as soon as I peeled my eyes back, I just felt this peace, and I thought, I'm ready. I actually could not wait to get out there, and I couldn't wait even in the race. I couldn't wait to run the last 5 laps. I was kind of like, Nick and Johnny described me, as like an animal in a cage. Like, I was just ready to go. And I was excited about that. I was excited that, I was the first final for the track events, and for me, going out there and kind of leading that and being able to hopefully put something together to inspire the rest of my teammates, especially the ones that I'd been training with, and done the whole build up with, and just going to put something out there to go, hey, like, you can do this too, you can, like, run out of your skin as well, or perform out of your skin. And I was just, I was excited about that opportunity as well.
Well, it's an interesting insight. And is that in comparison, Elsie, to other, major internationals where, on mornings or, the morning of the event, you haven't felt that degree of peace and excitement? Was it just a special
I think it was just because normally, you wake up and there's this, there's been times where I've woken up in the morning of the race and just thought, there's a lot of self-doubt and anxiety and the pressure of the situation. Like, it's the Olympics, like you would expect to feel all of those things. And that is actually quite normal, and hopefully by the time you get to the start line, that hasn't affected you too much. But I can honestly say from the moment I woke up, like, I just didn't have any of that, which is different. And I knew that there were people praying for me at home and praying for that peace that doesn't make sense. I can definitely say that was there. That
was one of those days. So beautiful. And Elsie, actually, while we're on Rio, caught up only last week while they're on the Gold Coast with training buddies of yours, and I believe your roommate from Rio, Genevieve, and Lacars and Ryan Gregson. And Genevieve mentioned something that in the 5,000 metre final, which was a very special moment for Australian track and field, having yourself and Genevieve and I think it was Maddie Hills, is that correct, in the 5,000 metres?
Yeah.
So the 3 girls running in the uniforms are just outstanding. And Genevieve mentioned that, she grew up as a girl admiring you and actually listed you as her most admired athlete, which I thought was really, really something. And that you said something really special to her that lifted her as you were coming into that close of that 5,000 metres. Can you remember that moment?
Yeah, I can. I've actually been meaning to blog about it or write about it or something, because I just, need to get those thoughts down. But we're obviously in the same heat for the 5,000 metres, and we're in heat 2, and we knew around about what time we had to do to get through on time, and we had quite a few kickers in our race, so we had to make sure that it was an honest pace. And we were coming around, we were on pace at about 8 laps. And then 2 laps later, or 1.5 laps later, I noticed that the pace had slowed quite considerably. But I was on the rail and I couldn't get out. And I was middle of the pack, and I kind of started to get a bit panicky. I was thinking, you know, all the biggest kickers are still here. And, you know, also we're not really on pace anymore to get through on time. And, as I'm running along, I take a few more steps, and just in the corner of my eye, I see this blonde ponytail, and I just thought, oh, it's Jenny. And I just said to her, we need to clear out. And she said, yep. And I said, we need 270s. And she said, okay. And so she took off on the outside, which allowed me to get out. And I followed her, and she just went straight past Vivian Chariot, you know, all the Africans, straight to the front, and did that next lap in like 69. And I think the following lap hers was either 69 or 70. And obviously we both made it through on time. And I passed her going down the back straight, and I just said, come on, as I went past, and she just got on the back of me, and we both, you know, we finished pretty close together. And I think, you know, we both we trusted each other. We'd done so much training in the lead up, you know, in Laguna, and there was this real trust there. And I don't think, you know, there's not many other people, and we hadn't planned that. We hadn't planned to say anything. We hadn't planned to help each other or whatever. We were excited that we're in the same heat because, you know, it's familiarity. And, you know, if there was a point, you know, in the race that maybe we could help each other, that, you know, then that would work out. But we had no idea that it would be that much, because I couldn't get out. And she said after the race that she was kind of in this place mentally where she was just hanging on.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said, like, almost commissioned her,
yep,
so this is what we need to do, she was like, yep. And she just took it on. And, like, yeah, I just think it was awesome.
Well, that's it's interesting, because Jen described it as, you know, she was at that point of, you know, just, gosh, this is, you know, obviously that real hurt point. And, you know, we're talking about the fact that often others can see more for us than we can ever see for ourselves. And she really sort of used as an example of, Jen did, of, you know, that was one of those moments where you commissioned her, as you say, and off she went, and you both got through. And I believe in the 5,000 metre final, you were relatively close to your PB, were you? Or was that your PB?
I ran 15:01, I think. So, and my PB is 14:54. So I was a little way off. But, yeah, I mean, I believe that I was in PB shape. It just kind of the race didn't kind of pan out as quick as I wanted to. And if I wanted to do a PB, I probably should have just run quicker myself. But, I was still really happy with how the final went as well. I mean, it's to run a PB at the Olympics is pretty difficult, especially in a final when there's, you know, there's a lot of tactics involved as well. But hopefully next year I'll be able to get down to those 14:50s and even 14:40s as well. I believe that I'm still capable of running that quick. And but 15:01 was, I think it's the fastest it was the fastest that I've ran in 10 years. So that was exciting.
Come on, that's great. That's terrific. Yeah. And I mean, mind you, that's after your PB in the 10,000 metres just a few days before. So, yeah, you know, outstanding. So would you rate that meet as your most successful in your career to date, Elsie, which started
I think
back
so,
when you were...
Yeah? Yeah, I think so. Like, just, you know, the whole... You know, all 3 races, like I just can't pick them apart. You know, there's the 10K, as I said, and just everything around that, and the feeling I had going in and just being so ready, and obviously running so well and doing a PB was amazing. And then, you know, and being in position number 1 on the line, you know, just leading the rest of the girls out on the track, that was really special. And then obviously what happened in the heat with Genevieve, we'll never forget that as long as we live, and when we're old and grey, like that kind of that bond and that in our friendship will never go. And then in the final, obviously, it was just, to run a final at night at the Olympics with 90,000 people in the crowd, same night as Bolt was running as well. So there was a lot of people there and so much energy. And, Nick, the things that Nick was saying before the race, just die with your boots on, I love that. Like,
this
just go out and just pour it out. Yeah.
Wow. And it's interesting, on a previous interview with Benita Willis, Benita shared some very practical coaching tips as well around that she'd had, those metaphors of hang on to the monkey bars until you can't hang on any longer, just hang up there. It's so do you find, what was going through your head, Elsie, on the start line of particularly your first final in Rio, 10,000 meters? And for listeners, to give them some perspective, Elsie, this is a story of a girl that I believe you grew up fairly, early in your teenage years dreaming about Olympic success, didn't you?
Yeah, like it started when I was about 10 years old. I was watching the Barcelona Olympics on TV, and I was actually watching Sonia O'Sullivan, Nick's wife, go around in the 3,000 metres at the Barcelona Olympics, and I was just so inspired by her and by watching the whole Olympic Games. And I remember saying to my mum and dad, like, I want to do that one day. So from 10 years old, I guess the Olympic dream kind of was planted, I guess.
And so here you are, fast forward, and you're on the start line of your second Olympic campaign, and on this great day where you just knew it was a good day for you. And what was going through your head in position one there on the start line? Can you remember?
Yeah, I just kept going over all the things that we'd been practicing in training, especially in the final few weeks, just to try and conserve as much energy in the first 10 laps as possible, no matter how fast I'm running. So even if we're running 3-minute Ks, I'm still relaxed. There's no strain, I'm relaxed. And then, and to stay compact. Just all these kind of words that we'd come up with that would help me relax and remember technically what my body is doing. And that distracts me from becoming too emotional and overwhelmed overawed by the whole experience or, the circumstance or the situation. Like, it's the Olympic starting line. So it can obviously become, you can kind of look around and go, whoa, there's a lot of people watching, there's expectation, what are other people going to think? And I think this is with anything, like any race or anything that you're kind of shooting for, when people know your goals or when people, expect you to do something, with that comes pressure and I guess your own expectations of yourself, and, that can build, has a potential to build anxiety, and that can be negative, obviously. So just, in that pressurized moment, just going through the technical stuff actually, helps me stay distracted from the actual
magnitude of the event.
The magnitude and the enormity of the event.
And any practical words? You mentioned words and phrases. Are there any that you're happy to share, Elsie, that have as a bit of a mantra for yourself?
I think compact was one big word that we kind of came up with that was, I guess, meaningful for me. Especially towards the end of the race, no straining, no overstriding, staying compact. Just going through my body to head to toe, just, okay, especially obviously when the race starts, what's my body doing? How can I conserve as much energy here but still run as fast as I can?
what was going through your head this year in Rio for your first final, which was a 3,000 metre steeplechase? Can you remember as you lined up there, the announcer announces your name in the stadium? What was going through your head?
Yeah, it's. I think for the public, it probably sounds like it's such a scary moment. But the scary part is the heats. The scary part is standing on that line knowing that there's actually a job you have to do before you get to where you want to be. So lining up for the heats is the scariest moment for me, because if you put one foot wrong, you won't be progressing. You won't be running the final, which is what you came here to do. So I was actually much more nervous for my heat because I knew that I was capable of making the final. I just couldn't screw it up. When I crossed that line, it was so much stress and relief off my shoulders. I felt like a different person when I walked out for the final, because I knew that I'd done what I was expected to do, and now anything from here was a bonus. So I ran the final really brave, I think, because I felt confident that anything I did was going to be great. And Ryan and I laugh about it. We bluff ourselves the whole way. As I'm walking out onto the track, I'm not thinking, okay, this is the Olympic final. There's millions of people watching it live right now. Be careful what you do. But I don't. I would say, okay, you're just walking out. You're getting ready for a track session. Your coach is there. You know what your reps are. You know what your recovery is. You completely trick yourself, because if you really stop and think about what you're doing, you also get overwhelmed and get nervous and anxious. So it's really strange. And for the 5,000 metres, I have to do that. It's a long, uncomfortable event for me. So when I stand on that line, I just say to myself, look, you got Eloise here. It's just a training session. You're going out for a threshold. You got your heart rate monitor on. And I bluff myself for as many laps as possible until it really starts to hurt. And then you're like, all right, I'm in the Olympic final and I got to get to the end.
And do you find an extra gear? I mean, it's an occasion that every athlete, dreams of, but only very few ever experience. Do you find it just pulls a depth out of your performance that you otherwise wouldn't have had?
Yeah, 100%. The things I did, I had to race 4 times in the span of 6 or 7 days. You pull things out of your body that you didn't think you had. Like, you go beyond your potential. In my heat for the 5K, it was 22 hours after my last race. It was very close to my steeple final, and when I woke up that morning, I was a bit sore from the track. I kind of was a bit tired from the past 2 races, but I was so lucky I got put in a heat with Eloise, who's someone I've trained with so much this year. And I still remember I had a K to go in the heat, and they only take top 5, and then the rest is based on time, so you just got to hope that you get in on time. And there was a bunch of about 10 girls, and I kind of in my head was thinking, wow, it's going to take a lot for me to make this. I don't know how I'm going to get through this last K. I was absolutely dead. I was so tired, and Eloise was just in front of me, and I just keep following her. But anyway, I came up beside her, and we had probably 900 metres to go, and she just turned to me, and when she realised it was me, she also felt relieved, because she's like, oh, thank goodness it's Jen. We can work together to get to the end here. And she just said to me, Jenny, we got to clear out now. And just purely because she said that, I was like, you're right. We need to break up this group of 10 because only 5 are going. And that's when I surged to the front, and she followed me, and we completely broke up the field, got rid of some stragglers, and ended up making the finals together. And that was a really special moment for me, because in my head I thought, it's okay, you've had a great championship already. This 5K was a bonus you threw in at the last minute. There's no expectations. You don't have to make the final. But as soon as Eloise turned to me and asked something of me that probably I didn't think was in my body at the time, I would manage to find a little bit of energy somewhere and get us to the end to both go to the final. If she wasn't in that heat, I believe I probably wouldn't have made it. Wow. So it is special what you can make yourself do if the situation calls for it.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And I think, that's an Olympic final. For anyone that's out there trying to seek their best performance, I think there's always more, isn't there? And sometimes
there is
that accountability, someone pulling that out, calling that out for you. I mean, we can always see more for others than we can see for ourselves. What a beautiful example. Yeah. I was really it was just great to see from the lounge chair the the companionship between yourself and Eloise and the team. I think this year the athletics commentators really got in there and really showed some of the personality. That was just raw and real, wasn't it? That's just the moment.
Well, it even could just, people might think, it's TV, making it look great. But the thing is, with Eloise and I, she is someone I've followed since I remember beginning running. She used to do fun runs all the time because she was so good from a young age. I would watch her every race. I used to go to the Noosa Bolt and watch her and be like, there's Eloise, I'm going to make sure I find her after and get a photo with her. Like, she was my role model. Right. And it wasn't until London 2012 Melbourne Track Club asked if I wanted to kind of hop in for a few sessions before we headed into the village. And I remember my first run where Eloise was running with me, and I was so nervous. I don't think I said a word, and I hung back like a few meters, and she's like, come on. And I was just like running behind her awkwardly because I was in awe of her. I thought she was as good as they come. And now, 4 years down the track, I'm running alongside her in a heat and a final, and in a lot of other races throughout the year, and training with her at altitude. You could have never told me that 4 years ago, and it's really, really special because, like I said, when we cross that line and from the heat, knowing we'll both go into the final, you can see it in my face. I'm just lost for words that with Eloise, this special athlete to me, we're going to the finals. And we roomed together in the village. It was a little fairy tale for me, and she's had a huge influence on my running. And my coach even says that Eloise really helped me progress as an athlete because she set a standard, and because I looked up to her so much, I knew that I wanted to be like her. I wanted to have her work ethic. I wanted to be as good as, she was. And it just made me into a better athlete. And that's something we're trying to do with the rest of the group now. We've got a lot of young ones coming and a lot of new athletes joining our group this year. And our coach wants to kind of get us all together because you're better as a team and it rubs off on each other, and you all just kind of get this really good work ethic, and you improve out of sight.
And Ryan, what was going through your head as the gun was
in the heat? Relax.
Yep.
Relax. I knew I didn't need to do anything outstanding to get through the next round. I just needed to stay on my feet, be composed, and then in the last lap move out and overtake a few guys and finish only in the top 6. So to get through was pretty generous. I think it was maybe 13 guys. I was thinking I just got to beat half of these guys and I'll get through.
And I think you came through in the heat second.
Yeah, I come second. Yeah. I had a really good run. Yeah.
And the gentleman in front of you was the 2008 gold medalist.
Kiprop. Yeah,
Kiprop. So you knew great mission accomplished. And then what was the turnaround time before the final?
2.5 days. So we probably raced on a Tuesday morning for the heat, and the semi was Thursday night. So the next couple of days, just a lot of recovery, ice bath, massages, plenty of food intake to replace what you lost. And it was also pretty hot that morning session. The nights in Rio weren't hot. It actually cooled off a bit, but the mornings were pretty hot. So I made sure I hydrated and just so when the semi-final came around, I was fully refreshed and good to go.
Yeah, and Ryan, people often ask me, get inside the actual specifics of of what athletes like yourselves are doing. What was your routine like for the ice baths?
Okay, so pretty much when I raced the heat, got off the track, did an interview, went to my bag, and I already had protein in my bag, so I made sure I got like 50 grams of protein in straight away, and so plenty of Endura protein bars and drinks in straight away, and so I got that in, and then I went straight away for a 20-minute jog, nice and easy, just to kind of work out the kinks. Then straight into quickly stretched my hamstrings and calves, because that's something that really I get like DOMS the next day, just because I'm getting a bit old now and I pull up sore. So stretched the hamstrings and the calves, and I was straight for a 45-minute massage, and then went back to the village and had an ice bath straight away. So, and then I had a bigger meal after that with some more carbs and just a general meal. But I'm huge on getting protein in straight away. That's the main thing for me.
Yeah, and you get that through bars and shakes, bars predominantly.
Yeah. Endura Pro Body Bar usually.
Yeah, cool. Good plug for Enduro. Awesome. And mate, and food. You said you had a meal that was greater in carbs that night. Can you be specific? What was on the menu?
I actually went to the Nike hospitality. I was on a golf course in Rio and actually had a burger. So it was just it was a
Nike
reasonably clean burger, but I went out to see the Nike team, and they had a great hospitality. And just to relax, I met up with my family and just had a nice afternoon out at the Nike hospitality. And it was just a good afternoon where I could just relax. My coach was there, family, caught up with them, and enjoyed the rest of the day until just so then the next day, which was the day before my semi, I just stayed in the village and relaxed and switched off, and then it would be game day again for the semi.
Yeah, cool. And semi, how'd that play out for you? Yeah,
same as the heat. I knew it was going to be tougher, but really it's not that much tougher. Heats and semis, there's not that much different to it. Like, there's always plenty of casualties who get knocked out in the heat. It's just, you get to the Olympic Games or the World Championships, and there's a lot of good guys. There's 12 guys that make the final, but there's about 30 guys who you could probably see in the final.
Yeah, wow.
It's really, other than, there's the top few which are the standouts, the absolute standouts, but other than that, the next tier, which I probably see myself in, there's a lot of guys who are at a similar level. So, the heats are cutthroat, the semis are cutthroat. But I just knew I had to have another good run, relax the first couple of laps, and then when I got a chance to move through with 700 to go, just move through and stay on my feet and run well. But the main thing was just relaxing early and not panicking, because I think that's what a lot of people do on the big stage. They panic at the parts of the race which aren't that important. It's the first couple of laps, and they just waste a bit too much energy. So that was conserve energy early and move forward through at the end of the race.
And I mean, that's I recall the interviews with you through, I think Pat Welsh might have been on the mic or someone there, and you were talking along those lines. I was just trying to hold myself back and just relax and pick my moment. So you got through on the semi, and that's a huge occasion for Australian athletics. First, 1,500 metre runner through to the final for 40 years. Mate, awesome. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was the gentleman that was the last to make that, I think, Graham, is that right?
Graham Crouch in 76.
And he was there watching the final, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. So, assuming he was.
Yeah, we'll say that.
Great moment for Graham.
Yeah.
Talk us through the final.
Yeah, so that's with how much I probably relaxed at the start of the race, in the final that probably hurt me, because the heat was won in 3:39, the semi was won in 3:39, but this the final was won in 3:50, so it was a completely different kettle of fish. Like, even 3:39 with the caliber of athletes on the world stage, that is a relatively slower race. 3:50 is just a complete dawdle. So where I probably am used to just relaxing and switching off so much the first couple of laps, I did that. When it is that slow, pretty much if you are not in the top few at the bell, it's we can all pretty much run as fast as each other in the last lap, and it just makes it tough. So we can all run. If you sent us all down to the track now and got us to do a 400, we could all run 48, 49 seconds out of blocks. So when we've done a couple of laps and a little bit tired, we can probably all run about 50, and we pretty much all did. It's just whoever had the positioning right at the bell, you pretty much finished that way. And if the race was 10 seconds, 15 seconds faster, it really doesn't matter where you are at the bell, because the guys who are further up the field have generally worked a bit harder to get there, have been used more energy jostling for position and holding their spot. And usually see someone like Willis who comes from the back because he's switched off for 1,100 metres, not worrying about where he is, and he tries to get there at the right spot. And I guess that technique is out the window when it's that slow, because it's literally just a 400 metre race, and that's what it was. And I was in a good spot for the first about the first 700 metres, and there was I think Kiprop pushed Quemoy over, and Quemoy went down, and that I actually nearly went down too. I think I put one foot on the inside and nearly went down, and luckily I stayed on my feet, but in doing that I got shuffled all the way back, and
I took 100 metres to regather, compose. You're right, you're okay, you're still on your feet. And I think it got to about 650 to go, and I saw a gap open up on the inside, and I thought, run less distance, take that gap. But it ended up going nowhere, and I got shuffled back again. And by that stage, it was 450 go. I was at the back on the inside, and there was just nowhere to go. And look, I ran well in the last lap, but I was just, I had to do too much work. So it's hard when the race is that slow at the start and it comes down to literally a 400-metre sprint. Any mistake, you're gone.
Yeah.
And the guys who got the medals didn't make a mistake, and unfortunately, I did.
Well, the Sydney Morning Herald, I was just, preparing for this recently there. I think they summed it up. Ryan Gregson finished his race and immediately wanted to run it again. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not immediately, but at least have another crack at it. They didn't use the word crack. That was my insertion. Gregson was perfectly placed, but then made a tactical error, and whoosh, the moment was gone. The race was as good as over. He went from place well to struggling for the place at the end. He finished 9th in 3:51. So, I watched the interview, and it was obviously evident that you were disappointed. Was it just purely in that one tactical moment?
There wasn't much I could do with with nearly falling over. That was just a bit of bad luck. But I stayed on my feet. But from then, with about 650 to go, I saw a gap on the inside open up, and I thought instinct was it's as a place to move up. You run shortest distance on the rail, move forward. Where it was a bit of a risk because it mightn't open up as well, and someone might move in and close that gap. So what I should have done there was 650, just move out to lane 2 and just ran wide and got to close to the lead by the bell. But that was a really hard lesson. But I've never been, unfortunately, I'd never been in a race like that before in my life. Every race at the major championships was at least 7 or 8 seconds faster, where even if you are 2 or 3 metres, 4 metres back at the bell, you can make it up, because, like I said earlier, the guys who had worked hard to get in the good positions are usually a little bit more tired than someone who's just hung back and relaxed the whole time. But when we are running 73-second laps, everyone's fresh. So it was, but I think it was obviously, I did make a mistake in the race, but it was obviously a lesson that I needed to learn, because I wasn't as prepared for it as I would have liked, and I'll never make that mistake again.
Yeah, all learning, right?
Yeah.
And good days ahead for you.
Yeah.
It's a moment, mate, in your career where you were at a crossroads in terms of injuries and potentially feeling like that was the end for you. Has there been a moment like that where you really doubted that whether you could get back on track?
I was actually having a terrible year in 2013. Not only was I struggling with injuries as well, I got bloody chronic fatigue as well from working too hard, and I was a bit sick, and then I trained too hard through that. It was just a bad period, and when people would say, "Oh, what do you do?" I just got sick of saying I'm a runner, because running was going so bad. So I went back to uni, so at least I could say I'm a student. And I think it just took a bit of pressure off as well, that even if I was having injury or running wasn't going as good as I liked, at least I felt like I was still moving forwards in life with my degree.
In interviewing Genevieve earlier, Jen mentioned that there's sacrifices that you make at the level of activity that you're doing, study, stable home, a whole lot of things. How do you process that? When you see, obviously, it's all about sacrifice, but is there ever moments in those down lows where you're right in the roller coaster at the moment? It's a great roller coaster, great upward trajectory for you, Ryan. But is there any moments where you sometimes go, oh, geez, this is, do you wish that the times your life was different, or it's like, no, this is all in, there's nothing else I'm engineered for?
No sacrifice for me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wouldn't do anything else. I'm 26 now, and I think 2 more Olympic cycles I'll be 34, but I just wish I could do this for the rest of my life. I love it. I love the travel. I love working towards a goal. I love the feeling of winning a race. Is nothing better. I love it. And I think because I missed that 4.5 years where I was still doing the sport, I was still making the major championships every year, but I knew still missed out on achieving because I was only able to put like half the training in, and it just makes me look so forward to the end of my career. We can actually go back to all these races that I performed badly at, or the championships I ran badly at, and just go there again but perform well, and that just excites me and gave me extra incentive to achieve, because there's plenty of meets around the world that I haven't performed as well as I'd like to. So that's why I just want to do it for as long as I can, so I can just have lots and lots of good races.
Do you think that injury period has given you a perspective that you wouldn't have otherwise had?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So and it's also made me learn so much about my body. Maybe I can't handle running 160 kilometres a week. Maybe 120 to 140 is more me. I learnt so much about isometric strength with my tendon injuries, and I do them almost daily just to keep my tendons alive. And the hard lessons I did learn from being hurt, I truly believe that's what's going to give me a career like Nick Willis, someone who's running well when they're 33, and I think Nick said he's going to go for another bloody 4 years, so he'll be 37. So I think what I had to, those apprenticeship years where I had to learn the hard way, I really do think that's going to give me increase my longevity in the sport.
And if you had to summarise from the apprenticeship, served your apprenticeship, the one takeaway, what would it be? The one takeaway for you, if you could sum it down to one bit of advice that you would give yourself now if you went back to that 20,
it's hard because
20.
I got hindsight's great. What I would say is, when I was at a position when I had a niggle or had an injury, I look back and I think at the time I tried to make the best decision I could, just take myself and my injuries more seriously. Like, if it's a situation where you've got a sore tendon, and go get the best advice, get more scans, and just treat yourself like an absolute professional, and just think what the best guys in the world would be doing.
What's something that scares Jess Trengove?
Well, there are a few. I guess from a running perspective, it is crossing the line and knowing that you didn't really give it everything you had. Whenever I start a race, I hope that I'll know that I, gave it my all and didn't weaken mentally. So that's a fear of mine in running. Other than that, probably lightning. I'm a bit of have a phobia of lightning. It started as a little kid. I was on the tennis court and just got really freaked out with this lightning storm, and it's something I just get scared still to this day being amongst.
Wow. And I shouldn't laugh, Jess. That was very rude of me to welcome on the show by laughing at your phobia.
No, that's all right. It'd be a pretty funny sight seeing me when I'm out there running and there's a lightning strike. I just lose it.
Well, I mean, the hard reality is they can be fatal, can't they? And at times, very unlucky, but for people. But Jess, one thing in your advantage is you are a very quick runner over a long distance. So I think you'd be a hard target. That's my prediction. And Jess, it's interesting you say that fear of underperforming is you'd rate up there as maybe your greatest fear. It's certainly a common theme, Jess, through the athletes that feature on the podcast. Why do you think that is for you?
Well, I just think all you can do is give your best. And if you were to cross the line, particularly in a major race, knowing that there was a moment in the race where you could have pushed or you could have sort of backed off, and you chose to back off rather than keep pushing hard, I just think that's a really hard thing to stomach, because it is within your control, as opposed to a physical issue you have out there. If it's mental, I always, think you want to, I guess, be your strongest mentally and get the most out of yourself. So I think it's a common theme for athletes, because they know they work so hard for that race day, and you want to give it your best shot.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did it all start for you, Jess? I know you grew up in a small town of, I think, around 5,000 people in South Australia. Narracute, is that the right pronunciation?
Narracourt,
sorry.
Yes.
So Jess, at what point did you realise that you... And obviously, there's a fair lineage of sporting talent in your family, which we'll talk about as we go. But when did you first realise, Jess, that you had some real gift as an athlete?
Well, I mean, as you say, I grew up in a small, or quite a big country town, I guess, and it was just... we lived and breathed sport there. It was a really active community with predominantly netball and football, but there were, other sports. A lot of basketball and tennis was played. And I guess because it only took 5 minutes to drive anywhere, we, had the fortune of being able to play basically every sport. And we also had a great pine forest around our school. So cross country was a big deal. And every year the teachers got us out training for cross country, and I think that really helped me to build a base fitness. And in my first cross country race, I sort of had a bit of success, yet, when it came to sports day and the sprinting events, I didn't sort of make the relay team. So I realised from the age of about 5 that I seemed a lot more comfortable over the longer distances and the endurance events. So that kind of continued through primary school. I just enjoyed cross country every year. I got really nervous for it, but I always loved the buzz afterwards. And in year 7, when I went off to nationals and just came home with a gold medal there in the cross country, that's where I started to realise that, it was something that, I really enjoyed and wanted to discover my potential with. But I guess it wasn't until the age of 21 that I really started focusing on running. I just loved sport in general until then.
So, and was there anyone, Jess, that really called it out or saw in you what was the hidden potential at a young age, a coach or anyone that sort of came alongside you and said, hey, Jess, have you thought about taking this seriously?
Well, it's interesting. I think I was fortunate through my primary school and I guess early high school years that I was always encouraged just to enjoy all sports. And I think that really helped me to, when the time was right to focus on running, I wasn't mentally burnt out. I was really ready to have a go. So it was probably... I remember a basketball coach when I was about 18. We did a beep test and he said, what are you doing playing basketball? You should be, focusing on the running. And I was a bit offended but kind of chuffed at the same time. And then, repeatedly being told in netball, you're just a bit short for the team. And I got really frustrated with that. I hated the fact that, my size could affect my chances. And
wow.
I met Adam Diddick, my current coach, in 2008. That's when he sort of started pulling together some athletes and started his squad team Tempo, and he's the one who recognised that I should have a go at the marathon one day. So he planted that seed pretty early, and Benita Willis was one of my idols from when I'd seen her run at the Sydney 2000 Olympics in the 5 kilometres. So I thought it was a bit of an outrageous idea, but when I ran my first half marathon, I did realise that perhaps it was going to be the event for me. And in 2012, we stepped up to the full marathon. So I guess I can give a lot of credit to Adam Diddick.
Yeah, wow. So there's a fair bit in there, Jess. I mean, obviously your coaching relationship with Adam and the teacher who politely offended you by saying, have you considered focusing on the running? I think that's funny, Jess. One of the previous guests on the show, Nick Willis, obviously New Zealand, great athlete and Olympic medalist. And the funny thing that astounded me with Nick was that he was toying up with rugby union. And could you imagine
really?
Nick Willis's frame on the rugby union pitch? So what is it about you, the Olympic athletes, with these other sporting dreams when you're sitting on the gold mine of your talent? But in terms of Benita, Jess, I had read in reading, getting ready for our interview today, that there was a beautiful little moment at the Sydney Olympic Games with Benita, who also featured on the podcast previously, Nee Johnson, Benita Willis. What was that story, Jess? Can you take listeners through what happened at Sydney Olympics and how old you were at this stage?
Yeah, sure. Well, I just ran in my first national cross country, so I was 13 years old, and my family, we managed to score tickets in the final ballot to the Olympics. So we road tripped over there from Naracoorte. So that was my mum, dad, sister Abby and brother Jack. We stayed about an hour out of Sydney in a caravan park. It was a great trip, and we got to go to the swimming, basketball, athletics and tennis. And at the athletics night, I sort of noticed this Aussie girl in the 5K field, and after the race she came up towards the grandstand we were in, and my sister and I waved out our tickets madly, and she came up and had a chat and signed our tickets, and she was just so down to earth, and it was a really influential moment for me, and I was, I guess, so amazed that she would take the time to speak to us. And so from that day onwards, I followed Benita's career and cut out articles about her, and was so excited to be on her team at the World Half Marathon Championships in 2010.
Yep.
And then at the London Olympics in 2012 to line up with her. I was sort of still pinching myself on the start line.
Wow, that's brilliant. I mean, you couldn't have imagined, right, as a girl, only dreamt back then, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I just think that. But isn't that the power of athletes inspiring the next generation? I just think it's such a terrific thing, from, Eloise Welling sharing about, Sonia. This gone blank. This gone blank. Help me out here. Sullivan, inspiring her, and it's just athletes inspiring the next generation. And do you now feel like that's what the kids are? That you're someone that the kids now look to? How do you fill those boots, Jess?
Yeah, look, you sometimes you forget how much of an influential role you can play. And I think when I went to the recent Rio Olympics and received a video from Naracoorte Primary School where I'd grown up, and they made this sort of dance and changed the lyrics to a song, and it was phenomenal. And I had the privilege of travelling down to Naracoorte only a few months ago to visit them all, and it was really special. It was probably one of the coolest experiences this year, actually getting to speak to the kids. And the same, cross-country course is there. It's a little bit different now, and a lot of the same teachers I had, and a lot of kids, who made cards and came up to me and said they love running and want to go to the Olympics. And you realise, that maybe, what you've done as an athlete has helped to ignite their Olympic dream. So, I love that side of our sport.
So, guys, there you have it. A best of episode from the year that was in 2016 on the Physical Performance Show. So appreciative of your support of the program. Tune in next week and jump back over if any of those guests that appeared on today's Best Of program piqued your interest and you are yet to hear their full interview or episode. Jump back over and get across their full episode. Guys, stay well, stay safe, and until next time, keep pursuing your physical best. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.